The history of women in Manchester music is, in some respects, a veil of tears. However, they're pushing through and big time nowadays. Please welcome my guest today, Mica Miller. Heaven knows, massive album when it came out.
It's Mica Miller, actually.
Mica. Mica Miller. Mica Miller. Listen, I did science A-levels. You know, it was called a mica window.
I've stopped correcting people these days. I just let them carry on, but...
Do what Johnny Marr does out of Smiths and spell it phonetically.
Yes.
Bit late now, isn't it? Mica Miller, but again, you know, you've been around on the scene for quite a while, because people always think as soon as I've only heard of them for 6 months, as if you've only been around a year.
Yeah.
But it was a long, slow journey for you, wasn't it?
Well, I guess I sort of started out... I mean, I was playing in bands and had a band when I was a lot younger. But I sort of started out, I guess, in maybe 2015, 16, taking it seriously, you know, and I was in a group called Red Sky Noise then. And, you know, so it's been a fair few years, not too long.
Where are they? So how did that band come about, Red Sky Noise?
That was, you know, somebody that I met in college, Mark Bernstein, who was known as Skis at that time. And I think we met in college, and he had this project, and we ended up kind of chatting about it, and it all kind of came together, and it was songs that I'd written, and then there was a producer who was sort of turning them into, I guess, drum and bass kind of dance stuff. And obviously after a while it became, I think, really clear to me that, like, you know, I didn't feel like that was the right way I wanted to take things musically. You know, I was always, songwriting was always kind of the focus for me. So I wanted I wanted the songs to be expressed in the way that I wanted them to be expressed. And so after that point, I kind of decided, you know, to, I guess, start producing myself. Yeah.
But it's interesting, again, you know, you're from Levenshulme, you know, down the road from me. So very similar to sort of, you know, always a big immigrant area around our way. I grew up in Old Trafford, Irish descent or Jamaican back in my day. Yeah. Now, obviously, Asian and everyone else, Polish, Ukrainians, all the rest. So Levenshulme, again, you've got, like, you know, the fantastic Rachel McFarlane, another great singer, gospel singer from Levenshulme. You know, wouldn't sing a song unless she thought the lyrics were okay and suitable for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, although not a writer herself. So when did you first, you know, become interested in music? You know, is it from being a kid?
From being a kid, my dad is a drummer and also multi-instrumentalist. You know, he tries his hand at all sorts of instruments.
So did he play in different bands around Manchester?
Played with George Borofsky for years.
Oh, right, yeah. Guitar George. Stretford lad.
Right, exactly. And, you know, he toured with other artists. He played with, oh, God, what's the name of that band? And it's going to do my head in. You'll know the answer to this, and it's just gone from my mind. An old soul band. Sad, sweet dreamer.
Oh, Sweet Sensation.
Sweet Sensation,
wow.
Thank you. Right, so he played with Sweet Sensation for a bit. So in our house, I guess there was always music passing through. There was always people there. We had a little studio in the basement, and people had come to sort of like record stuff. It was very makeshift, you know what I mean? But there would always be people kind of coming and playing guitar. Guitar George would always be in our kitchen with my dad. They'd be playing songs and stuff like that. So I guess that was always just part of my life. And when I was a kid, I loved writing poetry and songs. I've got a book from when I was about 8 that I've got songs drafted in that I'd written parts for my best friend and then a part for me and all that sort of thing. So I just loved it. And I've still got like pages and pages of poetry that I was writing when I was 10, you know what I mean?
So you almost like absorbed it.
I think so, yeah. And I think that was just always a way of expressing yourself, I guess. It was in me, do you know what I mean? I think my brother and my sister both grew up in that environment. And my brother actually really likes writing lyrics and stuff, and he raps a bit. He doesn't do it sort of as a career, let's say, but, you know, he's kind of got that in him. But my sister loves singing, and she can harmonise really well. But both of them kind of never took it down that path. So I guess...
So could your dad sing?
My dad could sing as well, yeah. My dad's a great singer, yeah.
And what about your mum?
My mum's not musical at all.
Oh, so it all came from your dad?
Yeah, absolutely.
And were you competing for his attention, do you think?
Maybe, you know, and actually I guess that was something that we really bonded over when I was, you know, when I started to get into it. My dad was always really encouraging. He was always trying to teach you guitar or teach you some sort of instrument. And I tried to learn the guitar a few times and gave up on it, but I did always have a real interest in playing the piano. And I think because you got that kind of instant gratification, soon as you hit a note, you get a sound out, don't you? So I remember there was one day where he was sat in the living room with just a small keyboard on the table, and he was playing something. And I think I went in and said, "Will you show me how to, play the piano?" And he wasn't musically trained. My granddad was a saxophonist, and he taught himself music theory. He was a jazz saxophonist, and he was really into that. But I think he really put my dad off because he was always trying to get him to learn music theory. And so my dad went completely the opposite way, dead rock and roll. I'm not learning any music theory.
Well, that's kind of a 60s thing,
right?
Because
exactly.
even the ones who did know it pretended that they didn't.
Right, exactly. So he was all about listening and all about the ear. And so, I think he showed me like how to play a couple of chords or something like that. And eventually I took the keyboard, nicked it off him, went upstairs to my bedroom, and I just kind of, taught myself to play piano, I guess, from those things. And I'd shout him and go, "Dad," whatever. And gradually sort of picked it up. And at that time, then it was interesting because then I was sort of able to, I guess, start to bring the poetry and the lyric writing that I'd done separate to any kind of musical instrument into playing the piano. And then I would just sit for hours and hours on end writing songs with my sister downstairs going, "Shut up."
Yeah, I mean, well, it is unusual because the thing is, it seems cool now. Once you've got an album out, that's had great reviews. But as a kid, it's like, who does she think she is?
Doing, yeah.
I mean, your dad was he very encouraging to you, or did he?
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's two different approaches to, I guess, encouraging children. And my mum is very critical, I'd say, of things, unless she thinks they're really good, and also she thinks her opinion is the answer to all, you know what I mean? So my mum, I don't think that my mum was particularly encouraging in those early stages where obviously what you're doing ain't that great. Whereas my dad, I think, could see that having been on that journey, this is what happens as you start. But I guess he could kind of see the potential. When I listen back to like very early recordings that we did of songs that I'd written, the thing that stands out to me is that, it's not honed, the vocal's not honed in any way, but there's a lot of passion in it and a lot of like, it reminds me of like when I was a kid, I used to love to scream. I don't know why. I was at tantrums, you know what I mean? But I'd go out in the back garden and I'd scream really loudly, and I like making noise. If I was angry, I would scream, So you can hear that kind of, intensity in the emotion in the voice from really early on. And then obviously as it starts to, you start to hear later recordings, it's like I've got the fine tuning of it and I've started to understand what my voice is and I've practiced it and, obviously it develops and on and on and on. And then you add more skills to your, you work with other people who produce and then you learn how to do that. And eventually.
So even before you went to college and got in this band, you already intended in your mind that you'd do something with music?
I don't know that I did think. I remember saying when I was a kid, if only one day I could get my song played on the radio, that'd be enough for me. You know what I mean? And I guess there was a period of time where I was making really basic demos, and it felt like there was this humongous gap between that and a final piece of music that you could give to BBC Introducing or your show, for example, around that kind of time, where I'm thinking, how do I get this song that I've written to be a piece of music that is finished, you know what I mean, as a record? And I got quite frustrated, I think, at some point, and I kind of thought, well, I don't know how to get that from there to there.
But is sometimes that a form of, I don't know, like anxiety or almost, this idea that it's got to be perfect first?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was just a quality thing for me. When you listen, we had this quite makeshift studio, and this, remember, is before the time of like Logic Pro X and all Cubase and things like that. Those.
I know what these things probably are, but I'd be lying if I said I understood them. Pro Tools, I've heard of them.
Pro Tools, exactly. So computer technology that's really advanced and actually really easy to use and really, people can now make like finished pieces of music in their bedroom studios. But at that time I was using like a 12 track, you know what I mean? Where you had to like comp in and comp out by pressing the button. If you wanted to retake a vocal, you couldn't just cut it and put it there. You had to do that. You know, it was ludicrous, basically. So there was a gap in technology, I guess, that hadn't been filled at that time, or that I didn't know about, and it was only just kind of happening, I guess. And then there was also just not really knowing, I guess, the right people for the music that I wanted to create. There was a lot of dance music about, there was a lot of drum and bass music, house music and all that stuff, and loads of producers making that sort of music, but not really people making what I wanted to make, kind of more organic.
If only Moonraker
soul.
had still been going
Right.
in Longsight down the road, where they did it all.
Right. So yeah, I guess that sort of when I found that gap, I sort of leaned into this idea of making my songs into, I guess, drum and bass, because I found people who wanted to work on my songs that were making.
And also it's a bit like reggae used to be in jazz. It's got that jazz thing where often you're singing across the melody line, aren't you?
Right. And the song was inherently, it was there were soul songs that I was writing, but then someone would take them and kind of, put a beat and develop them that way. And it became, I guess, that was a real learning curve for me to sort of see how you take something from a 12-track desk into, all right, these know how to use this software, and then watching them do that.
And was your dad there saying, no, real drums are better?
No, he wasn't actually. I think he was really interested in the way that
what was replacing him?
What was happening? Yeah, I guess what was happening. But yes, as I said earlier, like after a while, it sort of became clear to me that I sort of now had an understanding of how you would produce music. And I guess in that project as well, we were incorporating a little bit of real instrumentation. So we'd be recording real guitar onto something that was electronically programmed, drums, for example. And so I started to see, okay, right. And then I guess I decided I was going to do my own original stuff, and I then started putting on shows. So I put on like my own show at Band on the Wall. First I put my own show on at the Deaf Institute.
Yeah.
Whiskey Jar was first. I did a launch show at Whiskey Jar, that's right. And it was packed.
So where did all the people come? Were they all your dad's mates from the olden days?
People came from school. I did it quite cleverly, which I think was a good start, which was I did it on International Women's Day.
Yeah.
And I had Marley Hayes and Lay Full Stop and what were they called? Another band that aren't going anymore. Family something. I can't remember. Anyway.
The Family Stand?
No, it was, it was Jimmy from The Drop and, what's her name? Anyway, another group. I can't remember what they were called. That's terrible. So I put 3 other artists on the bill. I did it on International Women's Day, so we got quite a bit of press because it was an International Women's Day showcase. And then I invited people from school, people from the music industry, my dad's mates, all my mates, other people that I knew in music, and everyone turned up and everyone bought tickets. There was a queue around the corner, you couldn't get in, and it was a fantastic night. That was like the launch of my first single. And then after that, it was kind of like, all right, well, alongside music, I guess I was also, I'd done a business degree, and I had a business, I guess, doing marketing consultancy for people in hospitality. And I'd started getting into events as well. And my boyfriend that I was with was at the time, he was running a big event in Manchester, Psytrance night called Illuminati. And so me and him were kind of co-managing that business. And so it became like, I can promote my own shows. And I started just building it. So I did the Whiskey Jar, then I did Deaf Institute, then I did Band on the Wall. And after that, and obviously I'd put together a live band by that point. And after that, people were starting to say, are you going to do an album? Are you going to release some music? And the single I'd released was piano and vocal. Simple. I'd played it on the piano, done it in MIDI, got a piano plug-in, put a vocal on it, done. And then I thought I wanted to do something with a bit more production to it. And I ended up working on the 3rd single. The 2nd single was piano vocal as well.
And what's the first single and second single called?
First single was My Lover. 2nd single was Not the First. And the 3rd single was The Defender. And I'd been working doing marketing for this festival in Herefordshire. Again, I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, Goldie was at that festival, one of the headliners, and I'd ended up interviewing him backstage for the social media, I think. And we'd ended up chatting, and he said, I've just finished my new record. I've not announced it yet, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to come and sit in the car and listen to this record? So I said, yeah, great. So we went and sat in his car. He's drinking a bottle of I think it was neat vodka or something like that. Nice vodka, you know what I mean? But drinking a bottle of neat vodka, stereo on full blast, listening to this Goldie record. And after that, I contacted him and said, look, I'm trying to do these recordings of my stuff. Can I send you something that I think, you might like? And I sent him the third single, which was called The Defender, which I'd produced and I'd kind of arranged and had someone come in and record organ and bits and bobs. And he said, I love this, it's great. And I said, well, would you help me with it? Because I need someone to sort the drums out for me because I can't do a drum program. So he said, yeah. So him and I think it was James who he works with, they kind of, I guess, produced all the drums and mixed it for me and sent it to this mastering engineer. Anyway, I'm going on and on now. But I guess that was the sort of the beginning of, the first few things before the album and before what I went on to do.
So with the album, I mean, in the past, you would have been signed by someone.
Yes.
After the Goldie thing, but nowadays, in some ways, it's better that you keep control of it all.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Even what you were just describing there, the recording it yourself, getting people together, doing this, marketing it. But in a way, that's what you've got to do nowadays.
Right, absolutely. And it's funny because I ended up getting a job after I'd done those singles teaching at BIM in Manchester.
Yeah.
So I was teaching the dissertation module and a lot of that was about them doing a project about releasing music and managing themselves and all of that sort of stuff. So alongside doing teaching, I'm also thinking I need to get my album together and getting an understanding that you needed to build a profile yourself first in order to get a record deal.
Yeah.
And so in my head, that was what I was doing. I was building a profile in order to get a record deal. And then fast forward to now, however many years later that is, it's like once you've built your own profile and you've built your own fan base and you're touring, and
there's nothing for a record company to do.
There isn't anything for them to do.
Only cock it up.
Right. And so now I'm at this weird, I guess, point where it's like, do you want to carry on doing everything yourself? Because it's a lot of work.
And you just need a really good manager, don't you? Someone who knows the business or great lawyer, accountant.
People that I work with, do you know what I mean? I'm not doing it all by myself anymore. God, that would be difficult. But, I'm a bit of a control freak in that way. I don't like to say it like that because it sounds negative, but I like to know what's going on in my business. And I also think sometimes you no matter how many people you bring in on board and have a team of people, you're the only one who cares about your business the most, and two, has the full oversight of the full picture of where did this start, what have you tried, what worked, what didn't work, who are the audience, and also not just what you're trying to do to be successful, but what you're trying to do to create a life that you want, because ultimately that's sort of
it's about integrity. You've got to love what you're doing, and if you like singing to get the next hit,
right,
you're not necessarily loving what you're doing, are you?
Exactly. Yeah, it's got to be about, at a certain point it becomes less about, I guess once you become, okay, this is my full-time job, I'm an artist, that's what I do, it becomes like, how do I want to manage because it's not work-life balance. That's out the window entirely. You know what I mean?
It's like an illness, isn't it?
No, there is no.
No, I was going to say, if you're into stuff like you are, it's like a kind of illness.
Right.
Really. You've got no escape.
You can't escape.
It can kill people, and it has.
It's also just all one. You know what I mean? There's no distinction between like friends and colleagues or
creativity, isn't it?
My hobby time and what's your hobby? Do you know what I mean? Like there's nothing. It's all one, isn't it? So I guess it's just about how you want to manage your life.
It is. I mean, I try to explain this to people. I said, listen, it's a much scarier thing than you think. I mean, I managed a reggae band back in the day, and I remember the conversation I'd have with the main singer and songwriter, and he actually said that. He said, this stuff kills people.
Yeah.
And he was kind of right. Well, just the wanting to get someone, just that being driven to write the next song, to make it better than the last one.
Yeah.
Weird.
I mean, that bit I think is the fun bit.
Yeah.
You know, the writing bit and the
but now you can make a living.
Yes.
As you do back in those days.
When you're not, it's hard slog, and I guess you need to do something to sort of facilitate your art.
Back in those days, you had to get some posh kid had to like you.
Yes,
and sign you. And sign you to a record deal.
Oh, right, okay.
They were always posh kids.
Yeah.
It wasn't someone from down the road from you in Levy.
No.
It was the A&R, the junior A&R man. It was always, Sebastian, Tarquin, Tristram and Quentin. You know what I mean?
Right.
You've got those cushy numbers.
Yeah, well, and that's not going on anymore. That's just not what's happening. The whole music industry has evolved, hasn't it? And it's just a totally different...
It's just owned by platforms now instead of people who have to create stuff to make money.
Right. Well, and there's like social media's got two sides to it, hasn't it? The negative, which is, I think, particularly when I was teaching students, it was almost like...
Negative, which is, if you forgive me, Brexit, Tommy Robinson and Farage.
Well, if we're going to go down that road.
And the positive, you can make your own tunes.
Yeah, right. But you know what I mean? I remember saying to students, like, part of this is self-promotion. And I guess back in the day, if you had a record label that signed you and there was no social media and it was all press, someone else is organising all that for you. You turn up, you do your interview. That's very nice. It's easy to do. Off you go. That's the end of it. And the fact that people have got to become a sort of, I guess, a self-promoted product, and they need to be doing stuff on social media all the time is... I think it's hard for artists to accept because it's not necessarily... Not everyone's a big showman also.
Also, a lot of people who are very talented aren't organised at all.
Not organised enough, savvy. They don't know, but you're right.
That's about me. It's not joking.
There are a lot of people who it's just not their skill set at all. So it's...
Tidying up, eating on time,
Yeah. I think it's harder in that way and it's easier in other ways because you've got the potential to build.
I mean, there's more satisfaction in it when you know that you've done it. One of the strange things, when I was reading about, your trials and tribulations, making the album Heaven Knows, was such a parallel between you and the Salford singer, songwriter Ren Harvier.
Right.
Where she was on the cusp of going massive, age 20, and then broke her back because a mate jumped on her back.
Oh, shit.
I mean, she ended up getting a number 4, number 5 album when it came out eventually, like 2 years later. But a similar thing happened to you, which is like incredible, really.
Yeah. Well, I'd been and to pick up from, I guess, where we left off, I'd ended up going to work with the engineer that Goldie had introduced me to, who mixed The Defender, ended up basically saying, I love this. I'm interested in working with you on recording some more material. And I'd ended up going and recording the record with some session players, one of whom, he was in band with Emily Sandé, and I'd played with him at this sort of like showcase event and thought he was good and brought him in, and he brought some other people in and we recorded the record. And pretty soon after I got back, I was kind of editing stuff and then I'd planned to go back into the studio to record, I guess, overdubs and other bits and bobs. Things that I'd maybe not picked up on, I guess, due to lack of experience at that time, that I suddenly sort of thought afterwards, probably should have done that, probably should have done this. And we'd planned to go back in the studio. And the week before we were going in the studio, I had an accident on a trampoline. And
Wait.
Rewind.
What were you doing on a trampoline?
Well, me and my one of my best friends, we'd started going to recreational trampolining classes. This is a thing that people do for fun. And we'd done it because it was January and we were doing dry January. And we said, right, we need some things, to put into the month and change your habits, stop drinking and all that. Anyway, so we'd been going for a few weeks and I ended up trying to do something, I guess, that was, well, apparently it was beyond my capability because I made a right mess of it and landed really badly. and broke my back. And I was probably half an inch towards being completely paralysed from the waist down.
I mean, that's terrifying. I mean, that's traumatising in it, because I mean, that's the thing with Ren. She was only 20 when it happened to her. It was kind of, because she wasn't sure for quite a while, and I think that trauma in itself kind of changed the whole perspective on life.
It really did change.
Maybe drained some of the ambition from her as well.
Well, I don't know. It did the opposite to me, for sure. I mean, I remember coming out of hospital and I'd applied for some funding from PRS, and I'd supposed to have a meeting with this guy from PRS, and I rung him up and said, I'm not going to be able to make the meeting out, but would you be able to come to my kitchen to have it with me? I'm like dosed up on loads of drugs, because I'm in absolute agony. I think once I was out of hospital, I was in hospital for a week and a half or something like that. And then I was out of hospital with a back brace on. But I was, my dad was saying to me, you need to just chill now. But I was really determined that I was going to get this record finished and that I wanted to carry on, and I didn't want it to sort of stop.
Scary.
What was going on. But it was terrifying. At the time, it was terrifying. And I ended up with post-traumatic stress disorder, which I didn't really realise. But I guess when you have something really traumatic like that happens to you in a moment, you don't have the ability to process what's going on. And the thing that was much more terrifying about it was that because the response I had in the moment was that I became disassociated, basically. So I wasn't screaming or passing out, or I was really like, I've done something to my back, you need to call an ambulance, sort of thing. And because people observed me doing that, they immediately jumped to the conclusion that I couldn't have possibly seriously injured myself because I wouldn't be behaving in this way if I had. And so because of that, people weren't treating me as if I'd broke my back, and they're wanting to move me and all that stuff. And I was thinking, don't move me because you're going to paralyse me. And the fear of people not understanding the severity of what's going on was really intense. And I was quite terrified that I'm not able to communicate, and you're in a complete haze as well, because you're in that much pain that everything, all your, what do you call it? Well, I guess anxiety, but adrenaline's all pumping through your body. So it was a very strange experience, but that obviously resulted in me having PTSD. So I had to have, a bit of therapy and all of that sort of stuff while it was all going on. But eventually, it ended up that we didn't go back to the studio to record the rest of the record, because then it was COVID and it was lockdown, and that was that, basically. No one could go back to record. So I ended up having to overdub with people online.
But it's amazing that you could do that. Once upon a time, you couldn't have done that.
Technology was there for it. And also, all these amazing musicians were grounded. They weren't touring. So everyone sat in their own home studios, twiddling the thumbs, going like, well, what shall I do? So there were loads of people that were free, that could kind of work on it. And eventually, when the record was finally finished, which it ended up taking, bear in mind, there was 9 months where I was in a back brace. From the recording, which started in 2018, to when it was finished in 2021, it was 3 years, that it took from start to finish.
God, that's like some old-fashioned album from I don't know.
It was like hell, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's like, one of these mega bands like, I don't know, like Led Zeppelin or something.
Right.
Or, I think they managed about one a year, but yeah.
There were just so many things that sort of, I guess, held it up, you know what I mean, till it was finally finished. But I guess that kind of made it all the more triumphant when it was done.
Because it got great reviews, didn't it?
And it got great reviews. I mean, I went and mastered at Abbey Road, and the first bit of press we got was they did their annual roundup of the best records from coming out of Abbey Road. And I was on that list, you know what I mean? It was like, great. Then Jeff, who mastered it, still messages me now and again going, just got your flashlights on in Abbey Road, using it as a sonic reference for someone mastering it. And every time I think, that's pretty good, isn't it?
And then, of course, I mean, what you sang with, what is it? Well, a support for Gladys Knight.
Yeah, just been on tour with Gladys Knight.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, what was that like?
It was amazing. She is just absolutely incredible. And all her band and the team are just lovely. It's the first, obviously I've been touring, doing my own shows.
Yeah, of course.
But it's the first tour I guess I've done where it was like we were away in a van for, we were away for a month, you know what I mean? Driving all around the UK and going to all these, towns, that you wouldn't necessarily visit but getting to see a lot of the UK places you wouldn't go to. Great theatres, great audiences. And obviously for me, like I remember, before even writing songs, I used to go and play in pubs in the back end of beyond North Manchester or Salford.
That is the back end.
Right.
Anywhere north of Ancoats to me is Oldham.
Right, yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean? Be like right in the sticks somewhere in a pub with all wires hanging out the ceilings or whatever when I was about 18. And I used to sing Midnight Train to Georgia.
Oh, amazing. All her stuff was great. Right?
And there'd be loads of old men sitting there with a Guinness going, shut up. You know what I mean? And then you're there on tour at the Royal Albert Hall opening for Gladys Knight. It's like if I could have told my 18-year-old
just to meet Gladys. I mean, obviously, I'm of a different generation. I mean, I've still got the Claudine album she did. The soundtrack. James Earl Jones, God rest his soul, and Diane Carroll, and Curtis Mayfield wrote and produced it all. But she's her and the Pips sang it.
What I loved as well is her stylist was the stylist for Aretha Franklin.
Yeah,
I thought I'll never get to meet Aretha Franklin. Sadly, that's my.
So what did she bother to hang out with you a bit and have a chat with you?
She was really, really lovely.
Because some don't, do they? You know, I mean, not through being snobby, just through whatever.
And let's be honest, she's not really sat with everyone in the catering. She's got her own tour bus, you know what I mean, and she's doing her own thing. And she comes
not there on the Lamborghini.
No, exactly. But she did come and sit in the catering one of the days, and I was sort of like, I'd met her already, I mean, I didn't want to go pester her, but she was sat right where you go put your plates down, you know what I mean? So I went to go put my plate down, and one of her backing singers sort of brought me in on this conversation.
Were they the Pips still?
No, they're not the Pips.
They're all about 98 now, aren't they?
Right, yeah. She sort of brought me in on this conversation, and I was saying to her, everyone's really lovely and thanks for having us and whatever. And she just went, well, family, family, family. And then she pointed at me and she went, family now, see what I did there? And I thought, oh, great. So, I had some really special moments.
But she will have passed the rule over you first.
Oh, absolutely.
Before you were allowed to go on that tour, because she'd have thought, well, she wouldn't want anyone on that her audience wouldn't have liked.
Yeah, her and her team will have looked at it, definitely. And it was the same promoter who booked me for opening for Gregory Porter at the Royal Albert.
That's another big one, isn't it?
Yeah, and so they'd seen me perform and open for Gregory Porter, and that had gone down very well. And so they were really on my side, and they put me forward to her management, which was very nice.
So it's like, who have you guested with top trumps? And what's the Lionel Richie one? I've seen a picture of you with him.
Lionel Richie, I opened for Lionel Richie at Blenheim Palace, which was absolutely
posh.
Very posh, yeah. It's a little bit, you go into Blenheim Palace and you think, oh my God, it's just...
Is it dynamic ticket pricing?
I don't know.
I'm only joking.
I'm only joking. Event, but if you go into the actual palace, you know what I mean. Anyway, we won't get into royalism and all of that stuff. But fabulous place to perform. Absolutely amazing. And he is one of the nicest people, I think. You'll have seen that documentary. What's it? The We Are the World documentary. Uh-huh. Oh my God. When I watched him in that, I just thought, I love you even more now. He's just such a humble character. But I'd gone, he came over to say, oh, thanks so much. And I'd given him a vinyl.
Yeah.
And my camera crew's like filming, obviously, wanted to get a bit of me and Lionel on the thing.
Oh, that's terrible.
But he was the perfect gentleman about them filming, and he said all the right things, you know what I mean?
Well, he obviously knows, because don't forget, he was in the Commodores, and he wasn't seen as the main songwriter. No. In fact, the rest of the band hated his schmaltzy stuff. But he ended up having all the bigger hits, didn't he? With Three Times a Lady and Easy Like a Sunday Morning. Yeah. A bit, so it was that. So he understands. Also, what I've noticed is the bigger they are, I don't think they last if they're not a nice person.
No, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? I don't think I think the talent is there, but obviously if you if you start getting carried away with yourself,
Yes.
ego-wise, I think that would detract from the talent in the first place.
Absolutely, and there's
Because then you're about something else and not what you do.
totally, and you can really see with those three people who I've met. They've just got something about them. You know what I mean?
You know,
look in the eye. Go on,
Whitney Houston.
Oof. Yeah, that's
I spent all day with James Brown.
Very
Ever
nice.
heard of him?
Wow.
Have
you met Stevie Wonder though? Because that's
no.
what the one that's on my list.
No, he's
Stevie. If you're listening,
we were having a conversation before, right? About whose albums were all, which artists or all their albums are great. And I said, so there was Stevie Wonder. Then probably Marvin Gaye actually. Even the ones that aren't rated as highly, like They're My Dear, are much better than you think. Yeah, Stevie Wonder. Yeah, all right. Wonder. Fuck you then. Yeah. Sorry. Cut that bit out. Yeah, fuck you.
No, I've not met him. I want to.
No, you haven't met him?
No, I've not met him.
Did you get a message? Did you get a message via video like Tom Jones did?
I want to meet him. That's what I'm saying. I wish I'd met Stevie Wonder. No.
Well, but I mean, so what about your dad when you were doing Gladys Knight and that? Was he not there?
He was
getting in the front saying, do you remember Sweet Sensation? First black British group to get number one in the charts.
Right.
We were there.
He didn't come, actually, I don't think so.
Really?
He couldn't come to one of the shows, but my auntie did come.
How come your dad didn't come?
Oh, he's seen me. To be honest, when you do...
But Gladys Knight.
I know. But my dad's come to all my shows
for
years and years.
Oh, so he's fed up with you. You should have said, well, miss mine.
No,
you should have said, miss mine and just get in time for Gladys.
Yeah, I know. But I guess he's probably, when you're doing a support slot, you're not on for very long. And we weren't playing in Manchester.
Yeah.
And so everywhere. I think there was a couple that were close by that he couldn't come to because he was doing a gig or something else. And then the ones that were further away, it's like you're going to drive 5 hours to London and pay 300 quid in a hotel to see me perform a piano set for 5 songs. Right, yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I wouldn't want you to do that because you've seen it. You know what I mean? I'll send you a video.
So, I mean, did that actually help you build an audience doing those gigs? Or is that more just the experience of doing the big event?
I think it's a profile thing in that, in some ways, I guess it's all part and parcel of the same thing. Yeah. So people, take you more seriously when you've opened for artists and you've got the stamp of approval from Gladys Knight or whatever. But also, you'll see the repercussions of doing that. Positively, I guess over the course of the next year or two. I did Gregory Porter, I think, last year, same time actually, weirdly, I opened Gregory Porter on exactly the same day at the Royal Albert Hall as I did Gladys Knight the following year.
Wow.
So I've picked that day out for when I'm doing my own Royal Albert Hall show, at some point in the future. But, now I do shows and people say, we saw you with Gregory.
Wow, that's really good, yeah.
You do see that. And, we were selling merch at the Gladys shows and the guy that was doing merch said to me afterwards, I've never seen a support act sell this much merch.
Wow.
So to me, it's kind of like, obviously you get a sense when you're doing the right support slots that the audience is right. If you're selling a lot of merch and people are coming and going, after seeing 5 songs, you're just doing it a piano set and they come and pay 40 quid for a vinyl record, they liked you, you know what I mean? So that those people are going to be listening to the record, and then when your tour dates go on sale, they're going to
also for a lot of the old soul crowd, and this was more noticeable, I suppose, from that swing beat era in the late 80s, was it had got kind of watered down or poppified a bit, and so they all started buying gospel records, like the Winans and the Perry and people like that, and so, that was interesting. And I think, so that's why Amy Winehouse was a sensation in America, because suddenly it's like, well, here's something that is going back to what it is, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think, there's music develops, doesn't it? And that's an incredible thing.
But it's got to be about emotion.
The sound of R&B now is nothing like rhythm and blues. To me, that's not even the same genre. It's the development of it, you know what I mean? And I love modern R&B, but it's nothing like rhythm and blues, is it? So I think, for me, there's the thing that I love about what my songs always come from the song to start with, but because I love soul music so much, that's my, that's what speaks to me. And I love gospel music, and obviously that's the sort of, I guess,
that's what it is.
The thing that's birthed soul music, really, isn't it? And I guess that naturally how my songs come out, whatever's gone in subconsciously from all the things that I listen to and love, that's how it kind of comes out. But to me, there's an element of wanting to really sort of preserve the integrity of that genre in a way that is like, you know, what are those fundamental things that make a soul record great? And obviously the main thing is what's the emotion in the song.
Yeah, well, it's a feeling.
The feeling of it. But also, you know, the instrumentation, how you, you know, whether you put like a B3 organ in it or what, you know, what's the palette of sounds that you're going to use. And then how you're going to mix it is what defines it as, I guess, you know, if you're in the 80s, you're going to put a load of synths in it. And I guess what we're seeing now is like, you know, this transition out of like organic instruments in soulful music to more electronic instruments. And that sound to me has never been something that's resonated with me from the perspective of creating. I like when other people do it, but when I create, I'm not saying I don't use any like, you know, synthesized sounds or, you know, non-organic instruments, because I do, but like fundamentally that's at the core of it. So I guess that's what you hear from my music when I like it to be eraless in some ways, you know what I mean?
But I think often the vocals is what will carry the soul element.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was chatting to Mark Hadfield and we were chatting about Rachel McFarlane when he was in Loveland, and they did a cover version of Ketchy Jenkins' I Need Somebody.
Yeah.
And she kind of just improvised like this gospel style intro,
right?
And then I Need Somebody, and then held that note for 20 seconds. And he said in the studios they both got a chill, him and Paul Taylor. And he said, and they both looked at each other and they were crying just after holding that note for like 20 seconds, you know, and finding it, getting to it. And I think that is the power of it, and that's what will never go away, you know, whether it's like, if you like those sort of folk type singers, you know, the Irish ones like your Sinead O'Connors and people like that, they've got it. It's in there.
Absolutely.
It's all about the feeling, the emotion.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I'm excited to hear you. So when's your next album coming out? You're doing loads of gigs.
I'm doing loads of gigs. I'm working on the next album at the moment. I have been to record the next album, which I can't really talk about too much now.
No.
It's all top secret, you know what I mean? But
you'd have to kill me.
It was been a very, really, what's the right word? It's been a process of evolution, let's say. I feel like this album has been so far, fingers crossed, touch wood, you know, a very different experience to the last album, which was quite a lot of turmoil, I guess, and challenges. And this one has been a pleasure so far.
Is that because you've got a kind of a confidence built up by your battle scars and all the rest of it?
Well, I think not having a broken back helps for sure, and not being on loads of drugs and all that, trying to get off them. Prescribed drugs.
I know. I guessed that. I did guess that. You'd already gone through that bit.
I should just say that. I guess that helps, but also I think just the experience and the ability to kind of approach something with more competence and efficiency just makes the whole thing feel less. And also knowing, and I think knowing what the end result is going to be, and knowing that, you know, how you got there last time.
And enjoying you can enjoy the process more, can't you? Because you've not got locked down, you've not got...
You can't see even how you're going to get it finished. You don't know who's going to mix it, who's going to master it, you know. Even when you've done all this, you know, and you don't know anything along the way, you're just taking it one step at a time and then going, right, what do I do now? Okay, the next bit. Whereas this, it's sort of like, I know where the end is. I know what the delivery deadline is. I know who's doing what, and, you know, I feel...
So obviously, I mean, soul music is worldwide. The Japanese love it, you know. So, but you're doing Europe, aren't you? You're doing quite a lot of European dates. Have you done them before?
Germany, I've been touring in Germany a little bit over the last...
In your own right?
In my own right. Over the last, I guess, year or so, I got an agent in Germany. Well, what happened in Germany was that I'd started to get quite a lot of traction on radio here, and on streaming was going well. And then I think there was somebody, I think a major radio station in Germany picked up Trouble and started putting it on rotation. And so I started to see, all of a sudden, all my streams are going up in Germany, something's happening in Germany. So we ended up bringing a radio plugger in Germany, and they plugged the record in Germany, and it got, it got some good radio play. And then I was booked to do a show in Leverkusen I can't remember when it was actually, but I was booked to do that. It was the second show that I was booked for. So the first show I went was in Dortmund Concert Hall. I was booked for 1,200 people. I thought,
Wow.
what? I'm not even doing 1,200 people in Manchester. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, booked the show, turned up, sold out. Dortmund Concert Hall.
Amazing vibe, isn't it?
First gig in Germany.
It's a bit bad that you need that validation. You should feel the same whether there's 30 or 1,200.
Absolutely, you don't, but it's kind of amazing, isn't it, when you turn up somewhere. And then the second gig we did in Leverkusen was a TV broadcast on WDR TV, which is the equivalent of BBC here. And so we did that show and it was broadcast on the telly. And so, of course, and so now I'm going, and we just got back from a show on Saturday, which was in Helmbrechts, which you've probably never heard of, right in the countryside, rural Germany, beautiful. 400 people in a small venue, people singing your songs back to you. I did a festival there the other day, headlined a festival, 5,000 people singing your songs back in the front crowd.
Brilliant.
So it's, it's really...
And you're doing Vienna.
Doing Vienna.
That's posh, isn't
That's
it?
the first show in Vienna. And I've got, a few more tour dates in Germany for April. And then I'm in and out of Germany a couple of times this year. And then next year I've got a bit of a fuller tour that we've just announced the first.
Cursing Brexit under your breath.
I am. The queues at passport control.
And also not being able to bring your own musicians with you and all that. Checking stuff in and out.
Well, we don't bring instruments. That's too much faffing now with Brexit. We fly in and then we hire everything.
Well, everyone forgets once upon a time you have to check every guitar string in and out.
Right. It's absolutely ludicrous. They don't.
Sorry, this is one of my bugbears. Yeah. And what about the USA?
The USA is, I went to the Grammys because I got my Grammy membership last year. So I went to the Grammys in February.
What does that even mean, your Grammy membership?
Well, you have to be invited to join the Recording Academy. And when you get invited to join, you become a voting member. Which basically means that everyone that's a member of the Grammys can put their work forward to be considered for a Grammy.
Yeah.
And
you vote on everyone else's.
Vote on everyone else's. So you've got to be in it to win it. Yeah. It's obviously, it's a.
Is it? Do you have to subscribe like Netflix or something, or is it for free?
No, you have to subscribe. Yeah, yeah. You pay your membership fee that I guess funds the ceremony and whatever
Tax
else.
Deductible.
Tax deductible, exactly. Yeah. But no, I'm hoping to tour in the US with the next record. Fingers crossed. Brilliant. But it's a big market, and and
it's a lot of touring as well.
See how we go. Yeah.
Fantastic. This is all very exciting for you. I'm excited for you.
Thank you very much. It's good. It's going in the right direction. But it's great having, building something from the ground up. Mm-hmm. And whenever you have these, I had a couple of moments when I was doing this new record where I just thought, wow, feeling really good about where I am. Well, it feels even more sweet when you've got yourself there.
Exactly. And also in some ways, your dad being in the music business and then being mates with people like, George Borofsky, who's still playing now. Mm. He never expected to have a number one hit single, but he's made a living of sorts out of it. Yeah. And he loves it.
He loves it. That's true. Yeah.
Mad stories I could tell about him. Random things.
Yeah.
Almost like he gets conjured from the universe every now and then into my life.
Right, that's interesting.
Really weird. Yeah, George Borofsky, that's for another day. In fact, I must get him on. I need to get him on.
He's in France now.
Is he? Is that where he's living? Yeah. Full time? Oh, God, it's a nuisance, isn't he?
I think he's back and forth, though, but yeah.
He's moved a long way from Stretford. He was living in Macclesfield for a while. Yeah. Listen, Mica Miller. Did you notice what I did there?
Thank you.
Mica.
Yes.
Not Mica.
Yeah.
Mica Miller, fantastic to meet you. I've been waiting to meet you for a while, you know, because I've been reading about you online thinking, I can't bathe in the reflected glow of glory from her because I didn't give her anything.
Oh, bless you. Well, thank you for having me on. It's really lovely
brilliant.
to meet you.
You won't be getting away that easy.